Hello, everybody, and my name is Corbin. And as I sit here and record this, it is currently December 2020. And, December, and as the year 2020 winds down, I think we are all reflecting on, some of the many difficulties that we have all experienced this year. Um, for example, many of us have experienced loss in all sorts of ways. Um, many of that loss, unfortunately, cannot be replaced. And then some of that loss, so we can ultimately overcome. Like many people, have taken some else this year. For example, I have, I have, I earlier in this year, I lost a job that was having some um, good building potential as I was growing along, simply because the industry I was in was not jiving well in terms of surviving during a pandemic. It was definitely very travel based, so anybody who was in anything very travel based definitely ended up hurting during that pandemic. But that was just one. That was just one thing, and I am definitely still working hard in the process of my overcoming that. But the point is that is what inspired me to take a look into Sam Weisman, the award-winning sports journalist's book "Win at Losing," as seen in the cover right here. It's how the biggest setbacks can lead to our greatest gains. And really, it takes a look at the fact that, like, lose how much loss or taking a loss is, very much inevitable in all of our life's journeys. Um, the most impactful quote that I've got out of it, specifically from the first chapter so far, is that uninterrupted success is a complete fantasy. Nobody is going to just go out there and have this uninterrupted success. And like, some people might go out and have success early on. They might have a streak of good fortune early on. Others will have to stumble as they go along, uh, looking for the success that they're after. Um, is one of them better? Well, I mean, it depends on how you look at that. Um, if you experience little adversity early on, of course, then once once things don't reach the desired outcome that you're finding, you may have a more difficult time coping or gaining the measurable lessons from that. But the interesting portion of the first chapter is that Sam Weisman is telling the story via his son's tennis match. So he was um, a very adamant tennis player, and I found it interesting that Sam Weisman was characterizing this club tennis match as one of the most important sporting events of his life, um, because this very tennis match ends up being like the inspiration for the entire book. And and uh, what he does realize is um, that some of the greatest successes, um, some of life's greatest wins, come from um, taking a look back and evaluating the sting of a loss, and seeing how we can get better from that. Um, now, I I do agree with the theory that, of course, that experiencing experiencing the setbacks and experiencing adversity long before achieving your ultimate goal will definitely make you better and more resilient at taking those losses um, as by not achieving the summit right away. By not achieving the summit right away, of course, you still have that drive to achieve the ultimate goal. I think in my mind personally, I'm very progress minded. So I think for me, a lot of times it's like, well, as long as I'm getting there, seeing measurable progress, I am moving forward. So I think one of the greatest example is the 2016 Masters with Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth ended up blowing a 5-shot lead in the 2016 Masters with 5 holes to go, and you see, and because that was a he was in a young career at that point. Um, that sort of collapse really drove him to um, channel his energy and succeed further on. Um, as opposed to anybody who has had success early on. Um, it is said that many people, to cope with like not wanting to deal with losing in any way, oftentimes look for any 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 small stuff where they can find a winner, find where they can find meaning after that. Um, you mentioned a quote after after Super Bowl 50, where "Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a good loser." The infamous Cam Newton quote, um, and the thing is, Win at Losing does do an excellent job at showing showing how not only is being a good loser just being a good loser is not necessarily accepting losing or accepting not reaching your outcome, but it is accepting the situation. Like I found two very important two very important quotes, or very important definitions. I mean, and in terms of definition, loss and failure are completely two different definitions. So loss is just the fact. You either lose a game, you might lose a job, you might lose out, you might lose out on an opportunity or get passed up for somebody else. Failure is how you measure. Failure is when it comes to meeting an objective, and failure is the construct that you personally push onto that. So the loss is a setback. It's I did find it so that the true failure would be ultimately walking away after the setback. Um, Now, everybody, a lot of people claim that they're done with something if something doesn't go their way, and that could be a young mindset, and we're telling the story through the eyes of a 10-year-old. So, as this tennis tournament didn't go his way, he was convinced that he was done with tennis, but hey, a lot of kids will claim that because they are definitely developing both mentally and as a mentality. Um, also, I do think that he also the mention of the modern youth sports environment and how we are too much into specialization. Um, you know, I I can't help but think that students through middle up to high school, if possible, like based on applicability, it is always best for young athletes to compete in multiple sports. Certain other sports can improve on certain motor and mental functions, and you know what, based on my career success and how that can based on my career trajectory and how that has progressed, you will sometimes learn a specific aspect that is common for a number of practices that you might have a specific skill set at. I know some of the inventory that I have taken, and I am somebody that has had a number of different sales and customer service positions. And one thing I learned is that throughout some of the frustrations of my professional career life, I am actually I'm actually a good teacher for my coworkers or anybody to work with. And how that is valuable for any organization is I can shorten the trail of communication by being that guy in the front lines who just can make sure everything's running smoothly for everything, because of the way I pick up stuff and the way that I can relay that. And at I found this true whether I was involved in life insurance, whether I was involved in car rentals, um, or in my current position of tele of telesales and customer service. I have found myself to be a great resource to the coworkers that have needed me, and I'm sure management has always appreciated the input that I have been able to provide to help run smoothly and be that great intermediary between management and, of course, the front level workers. Well, and of course, this is just one edition of me breaking down or giving my thoughts on Win at Losing. This was just the introductory chapter. Um, Now, next up, the next chapter that I will take a look at will dive deep into Greg Norman, and I hope you stick around with that. I I I think this will be an interesting book to take a look at, because if you look at it, like for every Super Bowl, there's the team that has to get out of the way of the confetti, and for every March Madness tournament, there are the 67 teams that walk away as not being national champions. So, I mean, losing and setbacks are an important part of life, and it is it is incredibly valuable that we know how to best harness them and really use those to our advantage. So I look forward to breaking down each chapter of the book and giving my thoughts along the way.